Man, if you guys have been paying attention lately, it's not hard to see that the UFC pay-per-view model isn't just hitting the same like it used to. And it's not because the fans suck or the talent pool is dry. Nah, it's deeper than that. It's a mix of fan fatigue, pricing frustration, and the UFC playing a dangerous game with how they deliver its product. Let's start with the basics. Pay-per-views used to feel like a big deal. Once a month, maybe twice if it was stacked, and that was it. You planned around it, hit up your friends, split the cost, made a night out of it. But now, it's like every other weekend there's a card, and a lot of them just don't feel special. The UFC has kind of flooded its own market. Weekly events are great for the hardcores, but for the average fan, it's hard to keep up. You blink and there's another Apex card with no crowd and some mid-tier main event that you can't even pretend to care about. So when they do ask for $80, people will start asking for what? And that's the thing, man. Let's talk about the price. $79.99 for one night on top of an ESPN Plus subscription is a lot to ask in this economy. It's wild because you're not just buying the fights, you're buying into subscriptions just to have the option to buy fights. That's like paying a cover fee just to enter the store before you even spend money. Fans aren't dumb, they know what they're getting squeezed, and that leads to piracy. Let's not sugarcoat it, illegal streams are booming right now. Even casual fans know where to find them. It's not even about being cheap, it's about feeling like you're being gouged for the product that sometimes doesn't deliver, or worse, glitches out mid-fight because ESPN Plus can't handle the traffic. I mean, for an example, UFC 313. People paid and couldn't even watch the card properly, and that kind of stuff annoys fans. But here's the thing, the UFC knows. They know that the model is cracking. That's why we're starting to hear rumors about them flirting around with different platforms since their ESPN deal, ended. Netflix, Amazon Prime, maybe even Apple TV, and honestly, that could be the fix that they need. Now, I'm not saying go all in and dump the pay-per-view model overnight, but just think about the upside. Netflix is already experimenting with live sports. Imagine one flat monthly fee and you've got UFC events bundled in. Amazon's already got the NFL if the UFC partnered with them, but pay-per-views will still be a thing, just part of a better, smarter tier system. But it's not hard to see how the UFC could repackage their content for a broader global audience and give fans more consistent, affordable way to stay engaged. You eliminate so many of the barriers that pay-per-views throw up. No last minute payments, no sketchy streaming crashes, no sorry you just need to be subscribed here first, just click and watch. Keep the hardcore tier for diehards who want everything, but let's casually ease in without the $80 sticker. And let's just be real for a second, the UFC's current pay-per-view model is outdated as hell. In 2025, nobody wants to pay for ESPN Plus just to unlock the privilege of dropping another $80 on the pay-per-view. That's 2 layers of a paywall before you even get to the fight. So how do you fix it? Well, it's not as simple as just porting everything into Netflix or Prime Videos and calling it a day. That's just dressing it up with the same broken model with a shinier UI. What the UFC really needs to do is rethink the entire structure from the ground. I guess let's start with fight nights. These should be 100% free to anyone who already has access to the platform that the UFC is on, whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, whatever. If you're already a Netflix subscriber, you get access to fight night cards. No hidden fees, no premiums, add-ons, just press play. This is how you bring in new fans. You got them watching consistently for free with no friction. And yes, pun intended. That's how the NBA, NFL, and other major sports hook people. Then you offer a premium UFC tier, something like $10 to $20 a month, that unlocks everything else. Pay-per-views, Dana White Contender Series, The Ultimate Fighter, all behind the scenes content, and maybe even archives of classic fights. Hardcore fans would absolutely pay for that. And guess what? It feels fair. You're not blindsiding people with an $80 charge every few weeks. They're opting into something that actually makes sense. And that's the key. You're not pushing casuals for being curious. You're rewarding them for caring. You're giving them a chance to build into being a hardcore fan instead of trying to tax them on day one. It's good for business, good for growth, and good for the sport. And it feels fair. You're not being blindsided. You're opted into consistent value, and that's the key. Don't punish the casuals for being curious. Reward them for caring. Let them grow into becoming hardcore fans over time. Because come on, man, you're not getting a brand new fan to drop $80 on a pay-per-view. That's just not happening. Not in this economy. Not with how the content works today. You got to ease people in. Let them get curious. Get hooked on the personalities, the stories, the chaos, and then maybe they're down to invest more. That's how you build loyalty. That's how you grow the sport. It's not about squeezing the same fans. It's about creating a system that welcomes new ones. Because at this point, the $80 pay-per-view era is done. Fans are smarter, streaming is everywhere, people know when they're being overcharged. If you want them to pay, you've got to offer a real value. That means changing the platform, the pricing, and the access, and treating fans like partners, not just walking wallets. Now that solves the access issue, but what about the product itself? Because cheaper pay-per-views won't fix anything if the cards still feel like filler. Now let's get into that. Alright, so here's how we take it even a step further and actually structure the content to make the new model work. We've already fixed the access issue. Fight nights are, they come with the subscriptions, and everything lives behind a clean $10 to $20 premium tier. But now we've got to talk about how to actually use those fight nights and pay-per-views the right way. Fight nights can't just be filler cards anymore. These should be your proving grounds, the place where the future stars get built and ranked and stay active. Every fight night should have at least 2 to 3 ranked fights in the main card minimum. That's non-negotiable. If you want to push it further, cool, load it up with 4 or 5 on the bigger one. But the top of the card has to matter. And the main event, that should always be decent to great. Not every card needs to be a blockbuster, but no one's turning into a soft, low-level headliner. You want people to care? Give them a reason. Let the prelims and early prelims be your developmental zone. Throw your unranked guys on there, give prospects and Daniel White contender grades a shot to shine. But the core cards, that's where you keep things competitive. That's how you hook casuals who stumble across it on Netflix or Prime or whatever the UFC ends up. And then we move to the pay-per-views, which under this model, yeah, they need to go hard. We're gonna stack them from top to bottom, from prelims to the main card, all ranked fighters to elite level prospect. If fans are paying $10 to $20 a month for premium tier, they better feel like they're getting a premium product. And look, I get it. That probably means the fight nights won't be as crazy stacked as we all love. But that's okay. That's just being real about how the UFC does business. They want a paywall. They want a reason to say, hey, if you want the best fights, you've got to subscribe. And you know what? That can work as long as they have quality backing it up. If you're going to charge, you better deliver. And at that $10 to $20 price point, it's way easier to justify when you're going to get all the pay-per-views, plus Dana White's Contender Series, The Ultimate Fighter, for all the 5 people who still watch that show, and maybe some bonus stuff, interviews, old fights, documentaries. You're not just paying for one night, you're paying for a full experience. This is how you grow the sport and keep hardcore fans happy. Fight nights are your feeder system. Pay-per-views are your main attractions. One gets people in the door and the one gives them a reason to stay. If the UFC pulls this off, they're not just fixing the pay-per-view model, they're leveling it up. And honestly, I think this is the most realistic and balanced way that the UFC can move forward. Like, let's just keep it real. It's always pissed me off that you have to buy ESPN Plus, which is literally nobody else uses for anything else. And on top of that, they hit you with an $80 pay-per-view. And sometimes the card was trash. It always bothered me. So the way I see it, if the UFC follows a structure where you've got one solid pay-per-view a month plus like 2 or 3 UFC fight nights, you can actually create some balance, especially with how fast the roster is growing. Like, there's gonna be so many fighters, you're gonna need that kind of volume just to keep everything active and relevant. But it also gives UFC flexibility. If they don't want to run 3 fight nights in a month, now let's be real for a second, there's always gonna be a paywall. This is TKO we're talking about. The way they monetize, that's why I try to structure all of this in a way that actually makes sense from a business standpoint. Like, yeah, would I love it if we just paid for Netflix and automatically got every UFC pay-per-view included? Of course, that would be beautiful, but I just don't think that's realistic. Not the way the industry works. So instead, I'm thinking about building a model that still charges but feels fair, gives fans options, makes it easy to understand. $10 to $20 a month gives you pay-per-views, Contender Series, Tough, everything in one spot. Fight nights are free on whatever platform you already have or you're subscribed to, and now you've got a system that actually works for both sides. That's why I built this out the way I did, not just for the hardcore fans, but for the casuals and the future fans, and even the business side of the UFC. Hopefully you guys see the vision, because I generally think this is where it could go and should go. But man, All of that is way easier said than done. Like, yeah, I think I mapped out a perfect structure, something that makes sense, something that actually works for both the UFC and the fans. But who knows what they're actually gonna do. If they don't do it this way, I just feel like they're gonna fuck it up. I'm just being real. I've got a bad gut feeling that they're gonna overcomplicate it or chase the short-term bag instead of the long-term growth. So I'm hoping, I'm praying that whatever platform they end up signing with, they land on a model that's at least similar to what I laid out, because I generally think it's the fairest setup for everyone involved. Clean, simple, fan friendly, and still profitable. Don't mess this up, UFC.